We begin in Gaza, where Israel's continuous bombing of the besieged strip has killed nearly 400 Palestinians in 48 hours. The Israeli army is targeting areas from the north to the south. At least 6 people have been killed in new strikes in Rafah, in southern Gaza. They include a 5-month-old baby. The injured are being treated in an overcrowded hospital. The southern city of Khan Yunis is also being targeted in aerial and land attacks as the Israeli army expands operations in the city. It says it's conducting face-to-face battles after doubling troop numbers in the area. The Israeli offensive is also cutting off access to food and water across the strip. The UN is warning of a devastating famine if the war continues. More than 500,000 people in Gaza, that's a quarter of the population, don't have enough food. Hani Mahmoud is joining us live now from Rafah in southern Gaza. Hani, more airstrikes, more deaths. Can you bring us up to date with what the latest is there?
Yes, Harry, well, within the past hour or so, more airstrikes in the northern part, particularly on Jabalia. We're talking about Jabalia town and Jabalia refugee camp, simultaneously targeting more residential blocks and more residential homes. Their initial reports are from al-Bursh area, that's in Jabalia town, where 10 people reported killed, with multiple other were critically injured. And the other attack that took place in Jabalia refugee camp, again, we're talking about more residential homes being destroyed, and there are reports about many people killed. They're still waiting on the confirmed number of people who have been killed, and just due to disabled communication, we just find it very difficult to get the updates that we need. But this is part of ongoing systematic aerial bombardment of the area. Just overnight, the same area, Jabalia town, was targeted. A residential home was completely destroyed, and 16 people. We just got a confirmed report of al-Bursh family. 16 people from al-Bursh family were killed in that airstrike. There is a fear of more people still under the rubbles. Munir al-Bursh, the director of hospitals at the Ministry of Health, was critically injured. His family member, his daughter, was killed, and the 15 other from his sister's side of the family were also killed, as people were able to pull them from under the rubbles within the past hour. So far, we're talking about more death, more destruction, and more evacuation orders in the central part of the Gaza Strip. Al-Bursh refugee camp in the central part, and all the surrounding neighborhoods from the Nusayrat refugee camp were ordered to evacuate to the eastern, the southern part of Deir al-Balah, leaving the eastern side of al-Maghazi, al-Bursh, as well as the eastern side of Deir al-Balah, for what it seems to be part of the already declared Israeli plan of creating a buffer zone by displacing more people from those areas that are at the eastern side of Wadi Gaza, along with similar to what happened in eastern Gaza City and the city of Beit Hanun. More of this destruction for the purpose of creating a buffer zone at the eastern side of the Gaza Strip.
And Hani, throughout the war so far, you've been hearing from people about the very desperate conditions that the displaced are living in. And now the World Food Programme is warning of a devastating famine in the offing. Just how worried are people as winter starts to take a grip on the situation there?
Yes. Very worried and very also concerned about the coming days if we see more of these bombardment continues to take place in the Gaza Strip. There are a lot more people than we ever seen in the past are becoming hungry, and they are on the verge of famine, as a new reports by the World Food Bank and Save the Children, in fact, picked up that report and added to this. There are more children and families now. They are on the verge of famine, as the analysis of the data collected showed that 1 in every 4 households are going hungry, and in fact there is starvation signs that started to be visible across the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli government actions and policies, along with the constant bombings of the Gaza Strip, that has effectively destroyed all means of life, including sanitation and causing the hospitals across the Gaza Strip to be overwhelmed. On top of that, the crowded numbers of people inside evacuation centers against the little amount of humanitarian aid that been allowed into Gaza Strip. People are now not only displaced and traumatized, but also hungry and thirsty, given the current situations.
OK, Hani in Rafah, thank you very much for that. Let's cross straight now to Sarah Hayrat, who's joining us live from occupied East Jerusalem. And Sarah, can you fill us in a bit more on what the Israeli army is saying about its activities in Khan Yunis? It's saying it's intensified the troop numbers there and is engaged in heavy fighting. What more do you know about that?
Yeah, and a statement was released by the Israeli military detailing a bit more, not just in Khan Yunis, but also other areas, about how they've managed to find more weapons. They keep finding it every few days, they're saying, and they found this in Khan Yunis. They've talked about destruction of tunnels. They've talked about specifically attacks or attempted attacks by Hamas fighters, and they said they've managed to quash that before they were able to carry out those attacks. They mentioned an engineering operative, also launchers that they said were used against their forces about a week ago. But Khan Yunis, as we have seen, is densely populated, even more so because all of those that were in the north were told to head towards the south. They ended up mainly in Khan Yunis. That was thought to be the safest place to go to. Well, of course, it no longer is. And also what makes this war different to any of the other wars is that this involves a lot more urban fighting. Hamas fighters know the terrain very well. They know the networks underneath the tunnels, and they know how to operate there. And that clearly there is a lot of resistance, because already today the Israeli military has confirmed that 2 of its soldiers have been killed, 3 yesterday, and that death toll keeps on rising, as well as the death of a number of captives.
And Sarah, you're there in occupied East Jerusalem with the Al-Aqsa compound behind you, gearing up for Friday prayers, presumably in an hour or so's time. What kind of restrictions are being imposed at the moment?
Yeah, what you may be able to hear behind me is what's called the khutbah. That's the speech or the sermon that's held before the Friday prayer. Al-Aqsa Mosque compound is just behind me. It's called a compound because it has the mosque as well as that area, that empty area, which would normally be filled with worshippers on a Friday. 60,000 to be precise is the average number every single Friday. Well, the last few weeks since the October 7 attack and since the war started, that number has dramatically decreased. We're talking about 4,000 worshippers. And on some weeks, it was even less than that. One of the reasons is that the Israeli forces have been limiting who can attend the prayers. They're not allowing people under a certain age. Some of those from specific addresses in occupied East Jerusalem are also prevented from entering. And often, in fact, every Friday, not only have Palestinians been targeted, but media as well, including ourselves and other cameramen. And Palestinian cameraman last Friday was hit and beaten by one of the soldiers with heavy boots on in the head. And that gives you a sense of the clamping down that is existing in this occupied territory. The Israeli forces are carrying out heavy surveillance, heavy checks, and preventing not just people from entering Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, but also from entering the Old City. But just also to give you a sense, Al-Aqsa Mosque compound isn't just about Friday prayers for Palestinians. It's a hub. It's where when you go, you'll see mothers, they take their children, they meet, they sit in that square that you see behind me. It's a community as well. And a lot of Palestinians in today, it seems, are saying that some of the mosques in the area in occupied East Jerusalem are closing, and they're calling on people to head to Al-Aqsa Mosque because potentially this might be the only way they can protest to the restrictions, because it's clearly a lot more heavy-handed. And really, that's all the Palestinians here are talking about, is the inability to be able to move around with ease, and certainly feeling like they are under a watchful eye constantly and every single day.
All right, Sarah Hayrat there in occupied East Jerusalem. Thank you very much.